The Awakening. The Galactic Assembly had always found humans peculiar, not threatening, just odd. Among the 217 species that made up the great interstellar community, humans were perhaps the most contradictory. They lacked the natural armor of the Viscari, the telepathic abilities of the Murin collective, or the regenerative capabilities of the Gen. Their homeworld was unremarkable. A pleasant blue-green sphere with moderate gravity and acceptable radiation levels. The humans themselves stood at average height, possessed average strength, and demonstrated average technological advancement. What truly separated humans from the other species was their inexplicable duality. They could produce the most beautiful art in the galaxy, yet wage the most brutal wars against each other. They could display incredible compassion, while simultaneously revealing shocking cruelty. They were, in the words of Ambassador Tilori of the Alturian Dominion, walking paradoxes with surprisingly good coffee. But no one feared them. No one saw them coming. The Krell Empire changed that. High Commander Vexthar stood on the bridge of the Annihilator, his flagship and pride of the Krell battle fleet. 6 massive plasma cannons extended from its obsidian hull, like the fangs of some primordial beast. Behind him, a fleet of 37 warships hung in the void, each bristling with weapons that could reduce a city to ash in seconds. Status report on the human colony, Vexthar demanded, his scaled skin catching the starlight as he turned to his second-in-command. Sub-Commander Draz bowed slightly. Minimal defenses, High Commander. Our scans detect no military installations, no orbital weapons platforms, no defense grid. Just 3 small spaceports, agricultural facilities, and approximately 40,000 colonists. Vexthar's lip curled into what passed for a smile among the Krell. Perfect. The humans have spread themselves too thin. This colony. He checked the name on the holographic display. New Eden will make an excellent forward base for our expansion into the Delta Quadrant. But High Commander, Draz ventured, the Galactic Assembly's protection extends to all human territories. If we attack, the Assembly is weak. Vexthar slammed his fist down on the command console. They have no real military force, just peacekeepers and diplomats. By the time they mobilize a response, we will have fortified this system and moved on to the next. The humans are soft creatures who will surrender rather than see their colonists harmed. As you command, Draz replied, though doubt lingered in his yellow eyes. The order was given. The Krell fleet descended upon New Eden like a storm of razor-edged shadows. Dr. Eliza Chen was harvesting specimens from her experimental greenhouse when the sky darkened. She looked up to see massive objects blotting out the twin suns of New Eden, ships of a design she'd never seen before. Her assistant, a young colonist named Marcos, propped his sample container. Are those Krell warships? Eliza's blood ran cold. The Krell were known across the galaxy as conquerors and slavers. Though they were part of the Galactic Assembly, it was an uneasy alliance at best. Their presence here could only mean one thing. Get to the emergency shelter, she ordered, her voice eerily calm even as her heart hammered in her chest. Now, as Marcos ran, Eliza didn't follow. Instead, she walked with deliberate steps to her laboratory and placed her palm against an unmarked section of wall. A hidden panel slid aside, revealing a small terminal with a single red button protected by a glass cover. She remembered the day the Earth Defense Force had installed it, 5 years ago during the colony's establishment. This is just a precaution, Dr. Chen, the officer had told her. Protocol Lazarus. In the event of an overwhelming hostile force, activate it. But understand, once activated, it cannot be undone. Eliza had never imagined she would need to use it. The galaxy had been peaceful for decades. The Galactic Assembly kept order. Humanity had friends among the stars. But now, as the first explosions shook the ground and Krell dropships began to land, she knew this was exactly the scenario the protocol had been designed for. She broke the glass and pressed the button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a mechanical voice spoke. Protocol Lazarus activated. Genetic verification. Dr. Eliza Chen. Status. Confirmed. Signal transmitted. The temple doors are opening. Then the pain began. Eliza collapsed to the floor as fire spread through her veins, her muscles spasming, her mind filled with knowledge she had never learned. Battle strategies, weapon schematics, coordinates, codes, a hidden history of humanity that had been buried for generations. And one word kept repeating in her transformed consciousness. Remember. On Earth, deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a facility that appeared on no maps and existed in no database, something stirred. Ancient machinery, dormant for centuries, hummed to life. Massive doors that hadn't opened since before the first human colony ship left the solar system began to move. General Asher Drake was in the middle of a routine briefing when his neural implant burned white-hot. He staggered, clutching his head as information cascaded through his consciousness. Information he had never known was there, buried in his genetic code, activated by a signal from light years away. "Sir," his aide looked concerned. Drake straightened, his eyes now filled with a terrible knowledge. "Sound the alarm. Protocol Lazarus has been activated." "Protocol Lazarus." The aide looked confused. "I don't." "You wouldn't," Drake said quietly. "It was hidden from us too. Until now." Across Earth, 10,000 men and women, military officers, scientists, government officials, simultaneously received the same awakening. Knowledge buried in their DNA, passed down through carefully selected bloodlines, suddenly accessible. A contingency plan laid by their ancestors, activated by a distant colony's distress call. And in 12 hidden facilities around the world, massive doors opened to reveal humanity's greatest secret, a military force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. High Commander Vexthar was growing frustrated. The human colony should have surrendered by now. His forces had disabled their communications, destroyed their spaceports, and now occupied the major population centers. Yet, instead of the expected capitulation, he faced an eerie silence. "Where are the colony leaders?" he demanded of the squad commander who had just returned from the main settlement. "Unknown, High Commander. The buildings are empty. It's as if they knew we were coming." "Impossible. Our attack was planned in absolute secrecy." Vexthar paced the command center they'd established in what appeared to be a government building. "Find them. Search every." The lights flickered, then went out completely. "Backup power." Vexthar roared. Nothing happened. "Status report." He demanded into his communicator. Static answered him. Then, slowly, a new light source became visible, a soft blue glow emanating from what had appeared to be a decorative wall panel. The panel slid aside, revealing a small chamber. Inside stood a human woman, her eyes reflecting the blue light in a way that wasn't entirely natural. Vexthar recognized her from the colony records. "Dr. Chen, I was wondering where the colony administrator was hiding." "I'm not hiding," Eliza said, her voice different somehow, deeper, more resonant. "And I'm not just the administrator anymore." "What are you babbling about, human?" Vexthar drew his energy pistol. "Tell your people to surrender or die here." Eliza smiled, but there was something wrong with the expression. Too many teeth, too little warmth. "You misunderstand the situation, Commander. We're not surrendering. We were waiting." "For what?" Vexthar kept his weapon trained on her. "For the Guardians to wake up." Eliza's eyes began to glow brighter. "For humanity to remember what we really are." Before Vexthar could respond, alarms blared across his fleet in orbit. On his command ship, Sub-Commander Draz watched in horror as something impossible happened. The surface of New Eden was changing. What had appeared to be rolling hills on the southern continent were shifting, rising, revealing massive structures hidden beneath artificial terrain. And from orbit, as the false landscape fell away, the truth became clear. The entire colony had been built on top of a dormant military installation larger than any city. and it was waking up. "High Commander," Draz shouted into his communicator. "We're detecting massive energy signatures from the planet's surface. Multiple launch platforms activating. Weapons systems coming online." In the command center, Vexthar stared at Elisa, comprehension dawning too late. "What are you?" "We are humanity's memory," she replied as her body began to change. Muscle density increasing, bones reinforcing themselves, neural pathways rewiring. "We are what you made us remember." The first missiles launched from New Eden, striking 3 Krell warships simultaneously. They didn't explode. They embedded themselves in the hulls and began to transform the ships from within, nanomachines consuming and repurposing the Krell technology. On Earth, the hidden facilities had fully activated. Ancient warships, preserved in temporal stasis fields, were being brought back online. The Guardians, genetically enhanced humans designed centuries ago as living weapons, were emerging from suspended animation. And across the galaxy, on every human world and outpost, hidden protocols were activating. Ordinary men and women were remembering skills they had never learned, accessing knowledge buried in their genetic code, becoming something more than they had been. In the Galactic Assembly's central chambers on Axiom Prime, alarms were sounding as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The human ambassador, previously known as a quiet diplomatic presence, stood calmly in the center of the chamber as chaos erupted around him. "What is happening?" demanded the Alturian representative. "Your colony is attacking a Krell battle fleet." "No," Ambassador Richards replied calmly. "The Krell attacked us. We are defending ourselves." "With what?" asked the Muran delegate incredulously. "Your species has no significant military presence." Richard smiled the same too wide smile that Eliza had shown Vexthar. "That's what we wanted you to think. Humanity has been at peace so long that even we forgot what we really are. But now we remember." As if on cue, the massive viewscreen showed a new vessel emerging from Earth's atmosphere, a warship unlike any the Assembly had ever seen. Sleek and black, it moved with impossible speed, its hull absorbing light rather than reflecting it. "What are you?" whispered the Gen representative, tentacles trembling. Ambassador Richards looked at each delegate in turn, his eyes now glowing with the same blue light as Elisa's. "We are humanity. We are what happens when you kick in the temple door and wake the sleeping gods of war." On New Eden, Vexthar's invasion force was being systematically dismantled. The colonists, now revealed as dormant soldiers, moved with terrifying efficiency, their bodies enhanced by dormant genetic modifications, their minds filled with combat knowledge hidden in their very DNA. And above it all, Eliza Chen, no longer just a botanist, but now fully awakened as a guardian, watched as humanity remembered its true nature. The temple doors were open. The gods were awake. And the galaxy would never be the same. The Reckoning. Emperor Kraxthor of the Krell Empire received the news of his fleet's devastating defeat with eerie calm. The massive reptilian ruler sat motionless on his obsidian throne as the messenger trembled before him, awaiting the execution that typically followed the delivery of bad news. 37 warships, Kraxthor finally said, his voice a low rumble that echoed through the throne room. "Our most advanced battle fleet, over 20,000 of our finest warriors. And you tell me they were defeated by a single human colony." "Not just defeated, Emperor." The messenger's scales had paled to a sickly yellow. "Annihilated. We've received no further communications from High Commander Vexthar or any surviving ships. Our long-range sensors detected unknown vessels departing the New Eden system, heading toward our border outposts." Kraxthor finally moved, leaning forward, his ancient eyes narrowing. "What manner of weapons did these humans use?" "That's the most disturbing part, Emperor. According to the last transmissions we received, the humans themselves were the weapons. They changed, and their colony transformed into a military installation that our intelligence had no knowledge of." The Emperor hissed, a sound rarely heard in the throne room. "Impossible. Our spies have monitored human worlds for decades. They have no significant military. Their ships are lightly armed at best. Their soldiers are untrained compared to our warriors. It appears, Emperor, that we were meant to believe this. The messenger dared to meet Kraxthor's gaze. The sub-commander's final transmission mentioned something called Guardians and a protocol Lazarus. He said the humans claimed we had kicked in the temple door and woken the gods of war. For the first time in his 2-century rule, Emperor Kraxthor felt a cold sensation that might have been fear. He had studied the histories, the ancient texts that few Krell now bothered to read, and he remembered one passage that had puzzled him as a young prince. Beware the silent ones who walk as prey but sleep as predators. They hide their teeth until the moment of hunger. They were forged in fire and remember only when they must. The ancient Krell had encountered humanity before, long ago, and they had left a warning that generations of Krell had failed to heed. Recall all border fleets, Kraxthor ordered, standing abruptly. Mobilize the Home Defense Armada and send word to the Galactic Assembly. Tell them. He paused, the words bitter on his tongue. Tell them the Krell Empire requests emergency assistance against human aggression. The Galactic Assembly had never been in such disarray. Representatives from 217 species argued, threatened, and pleaded as reports continued to stream in from across the galaxy. Human colonies, previously thought to be peaceful agricultural or research outposts, were revealing themselves as military strongholds. Ordinary human civilians were transforming into something else, something more. And most alarming of all, ships unlike any seen before were emerging from Earth's solar system, a fleet that had apparently been hidden for centuries. Order. I will have order. The Assembly President, a crystalline entity from the Rigel system, vibrated at a frequency that cut through the chaos, momentarily silencing the chamber. Ambassador Richards, you will explain your species' deception immediately. Ambassador Richards stood calmly at the center of the assembly chamber, his transformation now complete. He stood taller than before, his body denser, his eyes glowing with that unnerving blue light. When he spoke, his voice carried a harmonic undertone that seemed to resonate with something primitive in the minds of those present. There was no deception, he said simply. We told you what we were. You chose not to believe us. You claimed to be a peaceful species, shouted the Krell representative, who had arrived just moments before with Emperor Kraxthor's desperate plea. You concealed weapons of mass destruction on every colony world. We are peaceful, Richards replied, until we are not. This duality is our nature, a nature we ourselves had begun to forget. We buried our weapons, our warriors, our very memories of what we once were. We hoped never to need them again. He turned to face the Krell representative directly. But your empire reminded us. When you attacked New Eden, you triggered Protocol Lazarus, the awakening of humanity's true nature. What exactly are these guardians? Asked the Alturian ambassador, trying to maintain diplomatic calm. And what do you intend to do now that they have awakened? Richard smiled that unsettling smile again. The Guardians are what humanity created when we nearly destroyed ourselves. After the last war on Earth, our ancestors faced a choice: continue on a path of destruction or find a new way. They chose peace, but they weren't fools. They knew that the galaxy can be a dangerous place. He gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, showing human genetic code being modified, enhanced. They created the Guardian Protocol, genetically encoded memories, abilities, and transformations that would remain dormant in select bloodlines until needed. They built hidden installations, ships, and weapons, then concealed them beneath our colonies and oceans. And then they made themselves forget, knowing that if the need ever arose, Protocol Lazarus would restore what was hidden. You're saying your entire species has been living a lie. The Muran delegate's telepathic voice was tinged with horror. That you've had this military capability all along. Not a lie, Richards corrected. A hope. a hope that we would never need to remember what we were capable of. He looked directly at the Krell representative. Your empire shattered that hope. What are your intentions now? The Assembly President's crystalline form shimmered with concern. The Krell attack was unauthorized by this body. The Assembly still stands for peace. As do we, Richards assured them. We have no desire for conquest or vengeance, but we will no longer pretend to be less than we are. Humanity remembers now, and we cannot unremember. As if to punctuate his words, the massive view screen showed a new image. One of the mysterious human warships had just arrived in orbit around Action Prime, the Assembly homeworld. It hung there, a silent statement more powerful than any threat. On New Eden, Eliza Chen, now fully transformed into her guardian state, stood among the ruins of the Krell Command Center. High Commander Vexthar knelt before her, the last survivor of his invasion force, his once proud armor shattered, his scaled skin burned and bleeding. You should have researched human history more thoroughly, Commander, Eliza said, her voice echoing strangely in the demolished room. If you had, you might have discovered what your ancestors knew, that beneath our peaceful exterior lies something ancient and terrible. What are you going to do with me? Vexthar asked, his voice barely a whisper. That depends on your emperor, Eliza replied. Even now, our ships approach your homeworld, not to destroy it, but to ensure you never threaten us again. She touched a panel on her forearm, and a holographic communication link opened. The face of Emperor Kraxthor appeared, his yellow eyes widening at the sight of his defeated commander. Emperor Kraxthor, Eliza inclined her head slightly. I am Guardian Chen of New Eden. I believe we need to discuss the future of our species relations. You have defeated our greatest fleet, the Emperor acknowledged. What terms do you demand? Simple ones. Return to your borders. Never again expand through force. Join the Galactic Assembly as a genuine member, not a predator waiting to strike. Do these things, and humanity will have no quarrel with the Krell. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. And if we refuse? Eliza didn't answer directly. Instead, she gestured, and the holographic view expanded to show the massive human fleet now in orbit around the Krell homeworld. Ships that seemed to bend light around them, weapons unlike anything the Krell had ever developed. We don't want war, Emperor. We never did. That's why we buried our true nature so deeply that even we forgot it. But now we remember, and we cannot forget again. Her eyes glowed brighter. The choice is yours. Peace with memory, or war with consequence. After a long moment, the Emperor lowered his massive head. We will agree to your terms. 3 months later, the galaxy had settled into an uneasy new normal. Human colonies no longer disguised their true nature. The military installations now stood proudly alongside farms and research facilities. The Guardians walked openly among their people, their enhanced bodies and minds no longer hidden. The Krell Empire had withdrawn to its original borders, its expansionist agenda abandoned. Emperor Kraxthor had even initiated reforms that would eventually lead to a more democratic government, though whether from genuine change of heart or fear of human intervention, none could say. And in the heart of the Galactic Assembly, a new chamber had been constructed, the Temple of Memory, where representatives from all species could share the lessons of their pasts to prevent the mistakes of the future. Ambassador Richards, now officially recognized as Guardian Richards, stood with Eliza Chen at the entrance to this new temple. Both of them had changed irrevocably, their bodies stronger, their minds expanded with the genetic memories of centuries of human experience. Do you ever miss it? Eliza asked quietly. The simplicity of not knowing, of just being human. Richards considered the question. We are still human, Eliza. Perhaps more truly human than we've been in centuries. Our ancestors didn't create the Guardians as something new. They preserved what humanity had always been capable of. Warriors, you mean? There was a note of sadness in her voice. Not just warriors. Richards gestured to the temple before them, where scientists, diplomats, and representatives from dozens of species were gathering. Protectors, creators, survivors. The duality that makes us human isn't just our capacity for violence. It's our ability to choose peace even when we remember war. Eliza nodded slowly. I wonder if we made the right choice, though, revealing ourselves this way. The galaxy fears us now. Fear can be the beginning of respect, Richards replied. And respect is the foundation of true peace. Not the peace of ignorance that we had before, but peace with open eyes. Inside the Temple of Memory, the ceremony was beginning. One by one, representatives from each species would share a memory from their collective history, a moment of triumph or tragedy that had shaped them. When humanity's turn came, Guardian Richard stepped forward. We share with you the memory of the last war, he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. When humanity nearly destroyed itself, when we stood at the edge of extinction and chose a different path, we buried our weapons and our warriors, hoping never to need them again. He paused, looking around at the assembled species, some fearful, some curious, some still angry at the deception they received. But we also remember this, that peace is not the absence of strength, but the wisdom to know when to use it. Humanity forgot itself for a time, but now we remember. We remember what we were, what we are, and what we can become. As he spoke, the massive view screen showed images of Earth, not the hidden military installations or the awakened guardians, but children playing in fields, scientists working in laboratories, artists creating works of beauty. The duality of humanity displayed for all to see. We are the species that forgets and remembers. We are the sleeping gods who dream of peace but wake to war when needed. This is our nature, and we no longer hide it, from you or from ourselves. In orbit around New Eden, the colony was being rebuilt, not as a simple agricultural outpost pretending to be less than it was, but as what it had always truly been, a guardian on the frontier, watching and protecting. And deep beneath Earth's oceans, in the facility where the first guardians had been created centuries ago, new chambers were being prepared, not for weapons this time, but for knowledge. The memory of what humanity had been forced to remember would never be forgotten again. The temple doors had been kicked open. The gods had awakened. But perhaps, with wisdom and memory both intact, they could find a way to be gods of creation as well as war.